Hello everybody. Today I'm going to be taking a look at a very unique and interesting laptop that I've imported from Japan and I'm actually using as one of my main laptops these days. This is a Panasonic CF-RZ5, or let's note CF-RZ5. Now, here's a little bit of a backstory to how I made this video, or how I came across this laptop. So long story short, I was searching Yahoo Japan for some PC98s as usual and other weird old computers, and anybody who's been in this nerd game long enough knows exactly what I'm talking about. You decide to look at the sellers because they might have some very unique, one-of-a-kind, or forgotten-about piece of technology that you just want to mess with some weekend. And so I did that. And what I found was this seller had a lot of like e-waste laptops, including some Panasonic CF-RZ series laptops, or Panasonic Let's Note laptops in general. Now, I had always wanted a Panasonic Let's Note for quite some time because I had known about them. I knew about the legend of the Panasonic Let's Notes. And, you know, I was amazed that such a cool mini laptop like this existed because I had sold my Fujitsu T580 to a friend quite some time ago. I don't even know if he still uses it. I should try buying it back off him. That would be cool. But I got that laptop, I sold that laptop to a friend, and I picked this thing up as somewhat of a replacement for it. And it was really, really cool. Well, actually, I picked up a Panasonic CF-RZ4, which is identical to this, except for one issue. The CF-RZ4 does not really go well with Linux for some reason. It just hard locks. I don't know why. I don't know the cause of it. I'm pretty sure it's driver related because there's also some other driver bugs I found. But the CF-RZ5 has a Skylake chipset instead of the Broadwell as in the RZ4. So this laptop runs a lot better in Linux. And it also runs good on Windows too. Anyways, the whole reason I knew about these Let's Notes is because they're these very weird and unique Japanese laptops which are portable and they offer a lot of cool features, and every few years you'd see journalists writing news stories about them. Like, I'm not kidding, every few years some tech journalist decides, hey, check out this really cool Panasonic laptop that's only available in Japan. And, you know, that's the thing. These laptops are very fascinating, and I've seen several models that journalists have written articles about, like the Let's Note B11, which was an 11-incher with a DVD burner, full HD LCD, and a quad-core CPU back in the early 2010s. The J10 10-incher from around the same time, which had a full-on mobile i5 and a 10-inch laptop. 10-inch laptop with a full-on mobile i5 instead of an Atom. They made a 12-inch lightweight laptop, the CF-RZ5, which had a DVD burner. And of course, this laptop, the Ultraportable 10-inch CF-RZ. And this is a CF-RZ5, like I said, but these Let's Note laptops are very cool because they're the laptops that you wish someone would make, but you can't buy them until they're being sold in the used market on auction sites, or if you have the connections or know the right forwarder to buy them. I haven't tried seeing if a forwarder will work for buying a brand new Let's Note, but it might, given that Linus could import an Epson desktop for a throwaway video that was genuinely slop content. I mean, he could have imported like a really cool Japanese laptop, but I guess he saw like Epson was making a desktop and he was like, oh my god, I just gotta have it. You know, it would be funny if I got a desktop from a printer company. So he bought that instead. But a lot of people think Japanese technology is stuck in the past, but they not only went down a different not invented here path, but they also don't see the appeal of getting rid of ports because some guy who declined cancer treatment and died said so. And what do I mean by this? Well, this is a CF-RZ4 now, or RZ5. They're the same ports on both, but even in 2015 to 2016 when this laptop came out, that is when you started to see laptop companies blindly copying Apple, which decided all you need is a USB-C port. And this has a VGA port, a 3.5-inch headphone jack, a USB-C port here, USB-A, you know, the port that everybody actually has. We've got a volume button here because, you know, if you're in tablet modes, it's a 2-in-1. Even though it doesn't have touch, I mean, it doesn't have pen support. It has touch, but not pen. A Wi-Fi switch. Your power switch here, which looks like a tough book, might take several tries to push. 2 USB 3 ports here, an Ethernet port, a SD card slot, perfect if you use like a nice DSLR, an HDMI port, and of course a power jack, which is a barrel 16-volt jack. Now you might be wondering what uses a barrel 16-volt jack. Well, other Toughbooks do, but also the Panasonic Let's Notes do, of course. Well, yeah, I forgot to say it. IBM ThinkPads also use the same power brick. Take a look at this thing. This has a barrel jack. This has a barrel jack too. They are the same jack, also 16 volts. This is also 16 volts. Let's see. 16 volt. Except this is a janky ThinkPad from the early 90s. I mean, not early 90s. Late 90s, sorry. This is a Windows 95 era ThinkPad. And let me show you something cool. Let's see if this will work even. So, I'm going to grab this power brick. Okay. Let me grab it real quick. I've got a Panasonic brick right here. Yep, it's rated for more than this laptop needs, because this is an old laptop, so it only needs 1.90. This is the Panasonic plug, not the IBM plug, because it looks like this. You know, a lot of Japanese appliances have this. Let's see if this will power on the ThinkPad, because I know the Panasonic one will power that on. Let's find out. Wow, it actually powered on the ThinkPad. Nice, it powered on our 560E. Really cool. Now, unfortunately, the battery on this laptop is completely shot because it's one of those old ThinkPad batteries, and I think it's even a smart battery too, so this battery's as dead as a doornail, and you have to carry around a power brick for this laptop to fire up. But that's the cool part. These Toughbooks do use a power brick, and also Let's Notes, that you can easily find at any like e-waste facility. You can just go in, see if they've got a power brick for the old IBM ThinkPads like this 560E or the T43 or the A31P. You know, there's a lot of ThinkPads that use that 16-volt barrel jack, and you pick yourself one up and you just use that. And that's all you need. Of course, the Toughbook will throw an error message at every boot about how, you know, it's not an authorized adapter, but you know what? It works just fine. There's no reason it can't work, except Panasonic, you know, they don't even try to not make it work. They just throw an error message. It doesn't even stop it from charging. So now, let's take a look at the CF-RZ5, because quite frankly, I've been talking about, you know, the circumstances and other cool stuff. Now, the thing is, Japanese technology is cool. There's a lot of cool stuff that they've made. There's, because of the not invented here mindset, there's the B-Tron operating system, there's, you know, PC-98s, X68000, weird word processors, weird business computers that are just proprietary and complete and total flops. And like don't even exist to the West or anybody outside Japan. And, you know, weird cameras, and of course legendary tiny laptops like this one. So let's start taking this thing apart. So the first thing here is the battery. This laptop, I actually had to order a battery from AliExpress because the problem is the battery on this laptop was dead and it only held a charge for 20 minutes at most. I tried recalibrating it, same stuff. Now, this battery is very obviously a rebuilt Panasonic battery. They just taped over the Panasonic logo with electrical tape to avoid, you know, getting seized in customs. But, you know, this battery works. It gives me a charge of like 5 to 6 hours. I haven't actually measured it, but that's what Windows tells me, and it seems to last for quite a while. Same goes with Linux. So let's take this thing apart first, because I want to show you what's in it. Now the first thing you'll notice is all the screws. This laptop is held together with a bunch of screws, and this is despite being lightweight. Now this is the kind of stuff that tech companies will try to tell you is impossible. Now first, I'm going to move out a much more bulkier laptop that's supposedly ultra-portable out of the way. The HP 2570p. We're going to put this over somewhere else. It pretends it's an ultra-portable. No, this is an ultra-portable. Now, a lot of big tech companies will tell you, oh, you know, people want our laptops to be thin. You know, we gotta use tape in it. We gotta have everybody use these weird opening tools because you know, customers want thin laptops. You know, we gotta like get rid of all the ports and have just USB-C. And this is what Panasonic did. They made an ultra portable that can be disassembled. So we're going to use a quality vessel screwdriver. We're going to take this thing apart. And so what you do is very simple. You remove all these screws. You remove every single one of them. Now they're all the same width. I mean, they're all the same dimensions. However, these two screws up here are lawn screws. Well, actually, they're not lawn, they're fat screws. They're fatter than these screws. So these two fat screws go there, and the rest are all these shorter, thinner screws. Now let's remove all of them. So here's the thing. With a lot of modern laptops, you know, you're supposed to use some magic opening tool to avoid damaging the customer's equipment or your equipment. Well, on this one, here's how it's held in together with screws. That's it. See how I'm pushing down and it comes in? When you lift, it comes out like it should? Well, that's the thing. This laptop was not designed this laptop was not designed as if the developers of this thing went to or engineers, not developers, the engineers went to the Apple School of Laptop Design, where you have to make it really thin and a pain to open. Nope. Opening this is like opening some of like the older MacBooks, where you remove all the screws and it comes right off. Boom. Just like that. You see all the innards of this laptop. Alright, so right here you can see what is inside this laptop. And there's a lot of cool stuff inside this laptop, and the first thing you'll notice is how much room there is. That's mostly for the battery, which is user replaceable, and you don't have to pop the back off, unlike many modern laptops. But here's a few other cool features about this laptop, and one major drawback. So here's the motherboard. We've got our Intel M5 processor right here. This is the same or similar CPU to what was used in the Apple MacBook 2016. I think that was like the really small one. And it was also used in the Surface Pro 5 for the cheapest low-end one, because the higher-end ones had your typical low-voltage i5s and i7s. But here's where it gets interesting. The descendants of this CPU are also used in the Surface Go, which is also a really tiny tablet. Let's see what else we've got here. We've got ourselves our Wi-Fi card, which is an Intel, I think it's an AC card. But you've got this Intel Wi-Fi card right here. We've got ourselves, the SD card reader and our ports. Of course, you've got the ribbon cable going from this side to this side. A cool thing is that the power jack is not soldered to the motherboard. It's actually got a cable that goes to the motherboard. Really nice feature. I like when laptops do that, because you don't total out the whole laptop or motherboard when the jack fails and you have to desolder it. No, none of that. You just replace the jack if somebody breaks it. So what we've got here is our memory. Unfortunately, the memory on this laptop is soldered. So these 4 chips, there might be more on the other side, but these 4 chips are 8 gigs of RAM, or at least parts of it. And the problem is that you cannot upgrade. Also, if the RAM ever fails like it did on some of the old MacBooks, or like the first MacBook Airs, well, you're out of luck there if that RAM ever fails. You just have to buy a new motherboard. But unlike Apple products, this is socketed. This M2, unfortunately, this is not a normal M2 drive. This is an M2 SATA, which is M2, but instead of being like an M2 NVMe drive, it's keyed differently and it will fit into the NVMe slot. But the problem is, it communicates over SATA and not NVMe. So what this means is that it's slower, but more importantly, you'll have trouble finding new SSDs for this at places like Micro Center, because laptops that use these only have not been made for a few years now. Of course, they still make these in general because of older laptops, and also because some relatively interesting, I can't say where, but relatively interesting embedded applications use these M2 SATAs. I know something at my old job that I'm not really supposed to talk about actually used them. It actually had it actually broke it out, because that's another thing you can do with M2 SATA. You can break out the power and SATA connections to be full-on SATA, so you can actually plug that in, and that's what the application did. But there's a bunch of cool stuff you can do with those M2 SATA drives. The problem is, you pretty much have to find them on eBay or Amazon these days, and this is some Fanuc Xeon SSD. I mean, it's some company I've never heard of, Fanuc Xeon or something. And the problem with that SSD is, I've heard that SSDs like this one that use YTMC memory, they have data corruption issues. So I wouldn't buy this brand of SSD if you're putting a larger SSD in this laptop. Another interesting thing is that there's a hole cut out there, and that's actually where this bottom grill is. And even better, you can actually remove the grill with a screw, presumably for cleaning this thing. If it gets really dusty, you can actually remove it with the screw and clean out the vent. And so now we've taken a look at what you can and can't upgrade. You know, there's not a lot you can upgrade on this laptop. There's the battery there. There's our crummy speaker. And I'll talk about that when I turn this thing on. And, you know, if you want to put it back together, it's as easy as to take apart. No clips, no having to clip stuff in. Just a ton of screws. And that's it. That's all you need to take this thing apart and put it back together. Really cool, isn't it? Alright, so let's take a look at the inside of the laptop. We've got ourselves the infamous Japanese layout keyboard with the minuscule space bar, because the Japanese language uses this as the space bar, and this is the select button, like with text messaging. We've got ourselves two buttons, and this button acts as a hold button. If you push it, the hold light lights up. I'm not even sure what it does. And then, of course, we've got ourselves, you know, the main event, which is turning it on. And I forget what the key is. I think it's like F1 or F2. One of these three will do it. We're in the BIOS. Now, the BIOS is one of the more interesting parts of this, simply because of its resemblance to the Toughbooks. You'll notice something here. 9540 hours. Now, one of the more notable features about the Toughbooks is that they record power on hours. And that can be used to determine how heavily a laptop was used. This carries over to the Let's Notes, which were also, some of them were actually sold in America and overseas as Toughbooks, even though they were not tough. They still sold them as Toughbooks because that was their branding. So this Let's Note actually has the same feature Toughbooks have, where it logs power on hours. Otherwise, you know, it's a bog standard BIOS, other than the power on hour feature. It's well, the other thing is, you'll notice the model number CF-RZ5P. Just like the Panasonic Toughbooks, even though the Let's Note generations are shorter, even though there's not like a million Let's Notes called something like CF-19 or CF-18 or CF-31. There are generations and marks. I think they seem to be like sub-revisions of these laptops. So a CF-RZ5 will have several BIOS updates for each individual mark of the laptop, just like on Toughbooks. Crazy, right? So let's go and see what we've got here. A bog standard BIOS, basically. A bog standard BIOS. If you ever used a Panasonic Toughbook, it's pretty much the same BIOS. It even has the same diagnostic utility. Very crazy, right? Oh boy. I don't like this this glossy screen, because right now it's basically reflecting into me proof that I need to go to the gym when I get my hand fixed, because right now one of my hands is really hurting, and if I do push-ups it gets into so much pain. So once I get that hand fixed, I'm going to be hitting the gym so often it's unreal. But right now we're booting Ubuntu. And I could have booted Windows, but you know what? I'll just boot Ubuntu instead. And what do you know? It boots really quickly because, of course. Anyhow, so let's take a look at this system a little bit. So we're just going to go to Menu, and we're going to go to System Tools, and we're just going to go to Mate System Monitor, because this tells us some of it if we go to the System tab. We've got ourselves an M5 6Y57, Intel HD Graphics 515, and also notably we have something else interesting. We've got 4 threads, of course, but there's one more thing that I think is interesting, and that is if you go here and we go to Preferences, System Tools, it's in Preferences, Displays. You'll notice something. This is one of the coolest things about this laptop. We have a really high screen resolution for this 10-inch laptop. 1920 by 1200. Really cool, isn't it? And that's what this laptop gives us, a crazy high screen resolution for just running Linux. Crazy, right? But the CF-RZ4, or CF-RZ5 as well, has it. What else can I say? It's a really nice ultra-portable laptop that I can pick up with a hand that's not even that great right now. Really cool. Really lightweight. I think it's like 750 grams or something. Worth it. That's all that has to be said. And that's all. It's an interesting laptop, but it has some caveats. If the battery goes, if any of the parts go, you have to import it. And I had to reinstall Windows as well because, you know, it had the Japanese version. But the problem is that, aside from having to reinstall it, you know, if you try changing the locale on Windows, it doesn't actually change it. There's a lot of stuff still in the original one, so I actually had to reinstall it. And also, the other thing is that this laptop doesn't have a pen digitizer. And if any parts go, like the battery or the keyboard, you have to import it from Japan, which takes a while. So just know that before you buy one of these things. All in all, very interesting laptop. I wouldn't recommend it unless you're like me and you tend to like get weird computers and don't seem to care that you have to import the parts from Japan if anything broke. But otherwise, fun laptop to use. It's great. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more. And also, one more thing before I end this video. I'm starting an XMPP group for nerds because I'm disappointed with like how a lot of the Discord groups are, where they seem to be, what's a good enthusiasm for it? Support groups instead of nerd groups. So, you know, we're starting a really cool XMPP group. I'm going to try to bring some friends into it. I'll see if they join. But I'll post a link in the description. Thanks for watching and subscribe for more.